Dr. Mzembi, the Minister of Tourism and Hospitality Industry for the Republic of Zimbabwe, and Africa Union sole candidate to the elective processes of the UNWTO Secretary General post, which falls vacant next year. I am carrying the cross on behalf of Africa as candidate for this prestigious position that will see an African for the first time assume office in the position of Secretary General at the United Nations World Tourism Organization headquarters in Madrid, Spain. In the past, there's been 3 European Secretary Generals in the form of 2 from France and 1 from Austria. We've also had the privilege to be served by a Mexican, and now we have my esteemed friend, Dr. Talib Rifai from Jordan. Never in the history of this organization have we had an African serving at the highest level. Now, I don't claim this post out of entitlement simply because Africa has not had an opportunity to run global tourism affairs. I bring with me a lot of experience. I am the longest serving African tourism minister in the continent, and arguably the 3rd longest serving on the globe after our good minister from Azerbaijan and Cuba. I also bring lots of craft competence to the job, having acquitted myself after my deployment as Zimbabwe's tourism minister to actually creating a ministry from scratch, because it was never there, to creating an economic pillar which is now arguably the leading pillar of our economy as projected by the Minister of Finance of the Republic of Zimbabwe, that tourism will actually lead in sectoral growth at 4.1% in the year 2016 to 2017, ahead of mining, agriculture and manufacturing. And I'm happy to be part of this revolution that has grown this sector from 2009 on my deployment at 296 million to over $1 billion as we crossed over into 2016 from 2015, boasting 2.5 million arrivals on the back of serious adversity, which many never imagined could be overcome to an extent where Zimbabwe itself would be host to the 20th session UNWTO General Assembly in 2013 August, which we successfully hosted with the Republic of Zambia and applauded by the current Secretary General as the best ever of General Assemblies in the history of General Assemblies in the UNWTO. So I'm happy to share with you this opportunity, obviously, to hear from me on my vision for global tourism, which I submit should reflect universality. I'm hoping to preside going forward over a UNWTO that can command universal membership of the entire United Nations. It is not sufficient for us to continue to be boasting of 157 membership, state membership, when the UN itself has 192 members and some evidently missing key members of the international community like the United States, Britain, Canada and Australia missing on the table. It can't bring the inclusivity that we so require now to prescribe sustainable solutions to the world's challenges that include terrorism, which in the most recent past has been targeting tourism, issues relating to natural disasters, child sexual abuse, adherence and compliance to global code of ethics. We can't achieve this if we don't have everybody on the table. So I'm pushing for universality. I'm pushing for inclusivity, but even more importantly now, I'm also pushing for responsiveness, leading an organization that can respond to the ever-changing macroeconomic environment, to the ever-changing environment itself, responses to climate change through robust adaptation strategies that will see us winning going forward into the future. So I'm happy also that I'm running at a time when the United Nations itself is designated 2017 as the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development, coming at a time when even in the sector itself, we're now very clear about the SDGs that are really tourism related, SDG number 8, SDG number 12 and 14, that speak to decent growth and jobs, that speak to sustainable production and consumption, and that speak to sustainable life underwater, marine life, respectively.
Minister Mzembi, if I may just come in there, you mentioned that this position will require your full-time attention. So what happens to your ministry? Are you now giving up this post?
Well,
what's happening now?
The position is full-time. Anyone who succeeds in May 2017 will have to relocate to Madrid, the headquarters of the UNWTO. So what it means is that I've signaled an intention to quit government and assume deployment in international systems, arguably becoming the first minister in that respect to actually request a consideration for a different and arguably a higher office in this instance when you ask to serving cabinet minister. I'm yet to know of anybody who has done what I've done, which was a difficulty in itself in the past when I had to approach the president for permission to be fielded as an international candidate, which it took quite some time to reflect on, and eventually granting me the permission to run in this elective process. I also know the difficulty on the part of the candidate and the president himself, who deploys data science, to go into that kind of conversation where you're letting go. Every mainstream is to serve as a government minister, and you go for the next job. And I'm happy to say that he has been my #1 supporter, and that if successful, I will then relocate to Madrid, and that will mark and signal the end of my domestic deployment within Zimbabwe, but will signal the beginning of an international deployment from the same government.
So what is the next process? How do you know whether you've been successful or not?
By May 2017, if I command 50% plus 1 in terms of votes from the Executive Council, I obviously shall know that I'm the recommended candidate to the General Assembly for that position, and that will pretty much signal the beginning of my exit from government service and the beginning of my deployment into international systems. And the President understands fully the significance of those international deployments, and this is why he supported my candidature. It can also happen that that endorsement can be withdrawn, as in the case of most recently a candidate from Australia, a former Prime Minister, who wanted to run for the United Nations, and the current Prime Minister actually said, no, we are not supporting you for that position. And once that has been indicated, so you cannot proceed. And this is why I continue to express my gratitude to the President for allowing me to stand in this instance, because it can simply just call for his decision to say, no, we're calling it off, and I'll be back in the mainstream of Zimbabwean politics. But I'm happy that he is fully supporting.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Minister Mzembi, for your time.